I'm going to.
Oh.
Sorry. Hard way to explain it.
Did you know?
I tried to write it down. And I actually didn't.
I'm like,
As much of this book.
oh, there. Already on there.
Next year's. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, I'm missing something.
Wasn't me, because I still owe somebody.
No.
Okay. Okay. You're gonna.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't me.
I'm guessing 85, but yeah,
Okay, close.
you might be right.
That's over there. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Standing by.
Over the last few years with all the new ones, I don't recognize as many of them
Yep.
anymore. Although a lot of them definitely are veterans.
Oh. But it's on the agenda. But right here at 6:30. Yeah, but it doesn't look any.
I only see one person I can definitely identify as Pete. Yeah, that's Jamie right here in the front.
Other than.
She's- Yeah, right at the end.
All right, thank you for your patience while we were in executive session. We are back now to public session. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a motion and second to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Communications. Does anyone have any communications to share?
I think we all received letters from the community continuing to voice their opinions about things going on in as far as the busing and the walking. And I know Mr. Genestri will address that in a little bit. And I did have a parent reach out that said they really like the musical. Did a great job.
One of the letters I got, and I think a phone call was, they think that we're not paying attention to the bus, the middle school bus and the issues that may happen with young children on a bus with older children. So I just reiterate that we have heard that and we will address that. Correct? Yeah, thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Okay, unfinished business, we have none. Dr. Genestri, your turn.
Thank you, Mrs. Battaglia. Before we begin tonight, we had, last week, the board recognized some of our Sweet Home Western New York Scholar athletes, and I think we have a couple here tonight that couldn't make it last week. So I just, Mr. Schumo could not be here tonight, but he asked me to recognize these student athletes for all of their hard work and accomplishments in their respective sports. So he asked me to read this statement. At the end of each sports season, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association honors those teams and individuals that excel in the classroom. Those student athletes, teams, and schools work very hard throughout the year and deserve to be recognized for their academic success. The students being recognized today have averaged a 90 or above in the prior 6 semesters. We're incredibly proud of the students' academic and athletic accomplishments from the fall 2024 season. And so with us tonight, Number one from our game day cheerleading, Carly Battaglia. Congratulations. There you go.
Carly.
Picture.
Congratulations.
And we also have from our boys cross country team, Dominic Croce. So Dominic, congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Sure.
Do we have any others? I don't see anybody.
I don't think we have any others in attendance tonight that we have missed. Okay,
You're welcome.
thank you. Okay. Dominic and Carly, you're more than welcome to stay, but if not, you know. Now faster than cross country, I think. So congratulations, Dominic and Carly. Before we get into some of the presentations tonight, I did want to just make a note, and I know I sent a message out to our families on Friday that, you know, we do compile a list of your concerns regarding the transportation, in particular, the 0.25 walking radius. We have compiled a list of those concerns. We continue to receive them. And I know that a lot of our family members expressed their concerns last week at our board meeting. And so I wanted to let the public know again that we have heard your feedback, in particular regarding the 0.25 walking radius that is slated to start in the 25-26 school year. We've compiled a list of your concerns, and we are working as a district in hand with our transportation department and our safety personnel to draft a plan to attempt to mitigate those concerns. So we are going to go through them one by one. We are going to look at them, address them, go on site if we have to, and make sure that your concerns are being met and that they're listened to and that we are addressing them. So while we do that, it may take a little time, but we would like to present our plan to you at the April 8th Board of Education study session and further report out what we are in our findings. So we appreciate that. We continue to encourage community to write us and write me, and we will make sure that your concerns are compiled, analyzed, and taken into consideration on any future plan that we discuss at the April 8th Board of Education study session. Next, I would like to invite up Mr. Feldman to talk about our Smart Schools Investment Plan and the mandated public hearing regarding the funds.
Dr. Olson, if you could just hit the next slide. Good evening, everybody. Just as a reminder, we were here in February to talk about an amendment to our Smart Schools Investment Plan. We did present that to the board in February. We have posted our preliminary plan on our website for a 30-day comment period. And in a second, we'll entertain any questions. I just want to give everybody kind of a quick overview on our Smart Schools Bond Act. The act was passed in 2014 and 15 through the New York State budget. $2 billion in funds were supplied to finance improved educational technology and infrastructure to improve learning and opportunity. And in April of 2024, the executive budget shifted the review from a review board to an administrative process by SED, which is where we'll head next, pending your board approval. Our initial Smart Schools Act funding allocation was just over $1.8 million. These are some of the things that are eligible for Smart Schools projects. They include the installation of high-speed broadband or wireless internet, learning technology for facilities, construction and enhancements to pre-kindergarten programs, and then lastly, the installation of high-tech security features in school buildings, which is what we are proposing as our amendment to our Smart Schools Investment Plan. Next slide, please. So as I did mention, our allocation for our interior door hardening project, we are asking for approval at the state level to move $551,415 to do a door hardening project at our high school and potentially portions of our middle school. We did request and received an approval of our deallocation of that money from Student Devices in November 2024. And basically the project would look at interior classroom doors. They'd be hardened with our card access door locks. So if the plan goes forward, we would submit this plan to SCD for their consideration and hopefully approval, whereas work would begin over the summertime season. So again, this is just the timeline that we've done for the proposed project. On February 4th, as I did mention, we presented the investment plan to the board. On the 12th, the board then did approve our preliminary investment plan. And then we opened the comment period. The public comment period was from February 12th through March 13th. We put our plan up on our website for public comment, and we have not received comments from that posting. So as mandated, what this serves as a public hearing. If the board or any community members has any questions regarding our plan, I'd be happy to answer them at this point.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Knowing how SCD is and, everything that's happening federal government wise, is that a pretty accurate plan to have SCD that fast approve it? I mean, are things seemingly?
So we've gone through the deallocation. That's a good question. We've gone through the deallocation process. We have a point person at SCD that Mr. Ellenfield, our tech coordinator, and I have been working with. And we have made her aware of our plan, and she didn't seem to see issue with it. So. Okay, with no other questions, we'll close the public comment and public hearing section. And then you'll see on your agenda tonight that we would ask that you approve the final plan. We will submit that to SCD tomorrow morning. And then oh, sorry, Dirk, go ahead. Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, just a little clarification. It says you've been awarded $1.8 million, and this is 500,000 of that. Did I not understand that properly?
No, you're correct.
Okay, so that can be used at future years for specifically the items that are on this list here?
Yes, we've used a significant chunk of it for, we've used it for iPads and things along those lines going back. But yes, there is still money that's left over that we can look to do other things. Yes.
Is it primarily focused on securing the school or safety for children, or is that?
Well, there are 4 areas that were up there. That one is improving internet and wireless connection, devices to modernize the facility management piece of it, pre-kindergarten, and then security.
Okay. That's all I need. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so again, it'll be on your agenda for tonight for hopefully your approval. If we do receive your approval, we will submit it to the board or to State Education Department tomorrow, and then wait for their final approval, and then we have a vendor identified. We'll work to get the work started at the high school and then potentially the middle school. And if funding does not work out and jive for the entire middle school, we've got it in the scope of our next capital improvement project at the middle school and all 4 of our elementary buildings. So we're excited about it. Thanks for the consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So each year as we go through the budget process, we work on our staffing plan based on our revenues and expenditures coming up for the 25-26 school year. Mr. Feldman is going to go, after I'm done, Mr. Feldman's going to go into more detail about the budget and provide the board with a budget update on where we are and where the budget is falling for next year. So next slide, Mr. Feldman. So first, I'd like to congratulate our retirees that we've been notified about so far. On January 15th, it was the deadline for faculty members to submit their letter of resignation for the purpose of retirement. We will have a similar celebration like we had last year over at the middle school. So details on that to come and celebrate their long and successful careers here at Sweet Home. We did also receive 1 administrator letter for the purpose of for resignation for the purpose of retirement and 10 faculty letters for retirement. And wanted to let the board know that tonight's information is presented to you before any seniority-based teacher transfers have been completed. But once we get a green light on tonight, we can start that process tomorrow if necessary.
Dr. Genestri, could you pause just for a moment?
Yes.
I'd like to invite our friends that are behind the presentation to come and have an open seat over here so you can see what he's
There's a
actually
few
talking about.
There's
There's
chairs over here.
10 or 12 chairs over here. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. You can grab a seat. So we wanted to start with where we are in the budget and what the outlook is. It is a tight budget. We are projecting a $1.3 million mandated increase in special education programming for next year. I say mandated because of the services that we must provide our students with IEPs or 504s. We have seen an influx of transfers into the district this year, and we're running over budget on special education this year. And so next year, we are projecting a 13% increase in our expenditures for special education. We are also projecting a $500,000 increase in contracted transportation. The driver crisis continues to be present and with us. And so we are allocating more money as we are running over budget on contracted transportation this year. Everything from private school runs that are mandated that we must perform to tuition students and students going to private schools. So we're projecting a $500,000 increase in that budget line.
Does this include our homeless?
Yes, McKinney-Vento, yes. Yep. We have received our healthcare numbers from the consortium, and where we will have a $700,000 increase in healthcare costs next year. So Don will go into that a little bit more, but we know we can put that into the budget now that we're seeing. There will also be a $480,000 increase in BOCES services, students that have signed up, but also BOCES provides us many services and technology and resources. And so those costs are nearly $500,000 more. So right now, we are also going to, one of the things that are of concern for next year is where our allowable tax cap for the 25-26 school year. Right now, without a supermajority, we are only allowed to raise the tax cap to 0.4%. Now, a lot of people know the tax cap is a 2% threshold. But there's a formula that our expenses and revenues go through in order to come up with the dedicated number for the following school year. So we did see an increase in building aid, which also affected our tax cap. And we are at a simple majority allowed to raise the tax cap 0.4% or $218,000, which is obviously not a lot this year. Anything above 0.4 would need a super majority vote by our public. So right now, as the budget stands, we are working with a gap of about $1.5 million in the red, where we currently stand right now for the 25-26 school year. So how are we going to close this budget gap? We will close it without cutting any faculty or staff. We will not lay off any service employees. We will not lay off any faculty members. We have a limited number of grades and programs that can be consolidated based on enrollment or class size. We also will not reduce or cut current student programming, and we will not impact faculty coaching or teacher intervention services. Those will remain in place. So we've done a lot of work over the past, I would say, 4 weeks, lots of meetings, lots of data. And we're pleased to say that we will not be cutting people from Sweet Home. We will not be calling anyone in and laying them off, even with a $1.5 million budget gap. So it's been some work. It's been a lot of discussion and a lot of data. But we're pleased that even this gap that presents us, that we will have our people with us going into the 25-26 school year. So I also want to show the board and our public that our enrollment continues to go up. Just in the 2019 school year, we didn't have full day pre-K here in the district. All of our pre-K students were educated outside of our walls, and we were at 3261. Today, with pre-K, we're at 3734, so a difference of 500 or so students just since 2019. Our ELL population continues to increase from 181 to 229 currently, and that we also have about 100 more special education students in the district since 2019. So obviously, we've done a lot of shifting of staff over the past 3 years to address these changes. And I think a big job for all of us here is going to continue to be to manage our growth. As we project, our growth will continue through 2034. And a big piece of us making sure that we are capable of handling this growth will be the budget. And so we're going to continue to keep all eyes on it as we move forward. But we're proud of the fact that our people and students continue to move into our district. We're proud of the fact of our how great our special education services and special programs are, that parents would trust us to educate their children through the special programs department. And we're proud of the fact that that our population continues to grow in ELL services. We are proud of our diversity, and it gives our students a world-class education here in our district. So I think those numbers rising are a testament to the work of a lot of people that are in this room tonight. I know that's hard to read, but if the trends continue, and that 2025 number that you see at the bottom is students currently in our district, students that are out of district placements, and our 3-year-olds. I looked today in Power School, that's our projection. We are at 4,068 if you include out of districts and 3-year-olds. And that number for 2025 is at 4,073. So that number is right on. And if this trend continues, I think that bottom number, if I read it correctly, we could be as high as 41 come the 2034 school year. And so, I'd be remiss to say that if one of the things in planning is not only the budget, but our facilities, And we're going to hear more throughout the spring and the summer about where we are in updating our facilities to manage this type of growth at Sweet Home. More on that to come, but it's well known out there that we are looking at additions for several of our elementary buildings to handle this growth. So I also wanted to put on here our class size comparisons that we've seen since 2019. 2019 obviously is prior to COVID. So anything that's highlighted in 2025 in yellow, the district has done a job of getting our class sizes back to pre-COVID numbers. And so anything in yellow means that we are at pre-COVID number or higher in the classes. So we're managing this as well. We understand, you know, our average class sizes are growing. We are looking at these numbers constantly to make sure that they fall within guidelines, research, when it comes to what a class size should be. There's varying research out there. But we feel like we're in a spot right now where we are, you know, at the top of some of those sections for sure. But you'll notice a lot of yellow on there, and we are back. A lot of our sections are back, except for I think 5 I counted on there, back to pre-COVID numbers. And through COVID, I also want to make note to the board that our FTEs and trending in our FTEs, we had a giant, I shouldn't say giant, but we added 41 positions from 19 to 20 and 20 to 21 due to the COVID crisis. Our total FTEs jumped to 394 that year. And currently, honestly, because of finances and budget, we are at 393 right now. So we added a lot because of social distancing. And we have needed that staff to help us manage our growth as we continue to grow in enrollment, special education, and ELL. So here are our recommendations to close the $1.5 million gap that we are experiencing right now. We recommend that each recommend that each building house 2 program aides instead of up to 8 that we have in the budget right now. That would be a savings of $300,000. We have high turnover rate in the program aide positions because our program aides are certified and looking for probationary appointments, whether here at Sweet Home or in other districts. So last year we had 12 turnover in the program aide department. We expect to have that again this year. And if we have that number, then we will be able to house a total of 12 program aides, 2 in each building for moving forward. That would save us about $300,000. If we have over 12 program aides left at the end of the year, either they did not find another position or did not find a probationary position, we do have open teacher aide positions in the district, and we will not lay them off. We will transfer them to teacher aide positions at their current rate. So we want to make sure, again, to reiterate the point, we will not be laying off anybody, even with a reduction in the number of program aides per building. We also recommend eliminating building-based subs. There's also high turnover here. There's about 2 per building now for a savings of $300,000. Typically, these are yearly at-will appointments that we will not fill this year. However, if we do have a building-based sub that has not found another appointment, again, we will talk to them about transferring to be a teacher aide or be on our sub lists. We also recommend absorbing 4 positions through consolidation or reorganization and special classroom and an integrated setting grant, which I'll explain a little bit more now, while adding 2 positions at the middle school based on their enrollment growth there. So Mr. Feldman, in working with the Special Programs Department, was able to work with state education to secure what's called a Special Education UPK grant and a special class in an integrated setting, SCIS grant. These, we can provide up to 3 rooms in the district that will help support special education students in the pre-K. These grants cover salaries and resources for the room. We do not have them currently in the district, but we have been told that we will have at least 2, potentially 3, which each room can generate up to $400,000 in revenue, which would be hugely helpful to offset that $1.5 million gap. So we're excited about this possibility of providing special education services to students in UPK. Right now, it's a very, I would say, fluid situation in our UPK rooms with students, but we're going to work in the summer to identify through the screening process, have them evaluated, and make sure that they are receiving the proper services. And this grant will cover quite a bit in making sure that that gets done.
Mike, can I just ask,
Yes.
for this grant, do we have an end date? Is that renewable every year or how?
It
will
is
that-
renewable every year, as long as we have the numbers to support the grant. These grants are renewable.
So is this bringing extra people in or no?
It could, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Okay, because I know when we did our COVID and,
Yep.
and we was distancing, we made it very clear we wanted those people in our budget.
Yep.
So that when we stopped, they would be included in our budget. We wouldn't lay off.
Yes,
Similar?
similar. I would say, obviously, we need the grant for this, and these would be teachers that would push into the classroom. But this is available to us. It's a rolling grant, and something that we expect to happen year after year. So at district office, we have the retirement of a principal of district services, and we are going to absorb that position. And last June, we had a resignation of an assistant superintendent, and we also will absorb that position. At Glendale, because of enrollment projections, we plan to maintain the current staffing there. At Heritage Heights, we want to replace a special education consultant teacher due to a retirement. We're going to fund the 2 UPK positions through the UPK grant. There were also 2 retirements at Heritage at the UPK rooms as well, and we will replace those using the grant. At Maplemere, we have a retirement of a reading interventionist that we will replace. And because of class sizes, we were able to consolidate 2 grade level sections at Maplemere. So we were able to, like I said, move those classrooms down because of enrollment numbers. We're going to watch and see what our registrations are like over the summer. We may have to make an adjustment at Maplemere, but right now we can consolidate 2 rooms over there.
And when you say make an adjustment, that does not mean laying off anybody. That just
Correct.
means-
That means we would have to either hire or make another move. That would not be laying off because the adjustment would be due to an increase in enrollment or an increase in registrations over the summer at Maplemere.
Just wanted to make sure we were
Yep.
clear.
So this plan allows for flexibility if we
It does.
get an increase over the summer for
Yep.
those.
Absolutely. We will be, we can be flexible.
Is this the bubble kindergarten that we're talking?
Yes.
And
Yep.
then how do our numbers look for the pre-K coming in? Similar bubble?
Similar, a little higher than what's currently there right now, but it's still early to tell because we're only in March. So we know we get a large influx of transfers in the summer, and we're going to just have to watch it as it continues to grow. At Willow Ridge, there were 2 retirements. We are proposing replacing both a grade 4 position and a kindergarten position. At the middle school, we are going to replace 2 grade 6 positions due to retirements. We're currently advertising for a world language teacher to replace a retirement. And due to enrollment increases, we are proposing and working with the middle school team there to add two following positions, PE Health, which is one position, and an art position there. Those are due to large class sizes that are currently there and we project to have next year. And then at the high school Ready Special Education Department, we have a retirement of a psychologist there. And we are working with the special programs to reorganize how we do psychology services in the district to make them more centralized. And we believe that our psychologists will be doing more they do a lot. We want them to focus a lot on evals and re-evals now in their positions. So we're going to look to centralize psychology and work with special programs to make sure, obviously, it's a change, but that our services remain the same for our students.
Will this leave space for them if they're called for a kid in trauma or, I mean, because I know they're
Yep.
vital in that.
Yep. So the district has added, they can help with that if there's time available. However, the district has added counselors and social workers at the buildings, and our principals and administrators and teachers are receiving training on that all the time as well. So overall, we have one administrative retirement that we're going to absorb and one resignation that we are absorbing, 10 faculty retirements, absorbing 4 there that include the psychologist, 2 elementary grade levels. And then once we settle the district transfer list, we'll likely have one other position that will be absorbed, but we have to settle that list first before we know what that is. We want to add 2 faculty members at the middle school. Grant fund 2 UPK positions at Heritage Heights. But I want to reiterate that we are not laying off anybody at Sweet Home. And we could do that with closing the $1.5 million budget gap that we have in place. So I give a lot of credit to Don and Katie for their work in finding some revenue. I appreciate the work of our administrators that we've talked to about the plans. And I know, it's going to be tight next year. There's no question about it. But we have to operate in a place where we are closing budget gaps overall. So I also want to say other factors that could impact staffing throughout the summer because it's still March. Registrations and transfers, kindergarten registration, final and approved New York State budget. This is important because last year we had the rug cut out from under us at the last minute. And we had to account for that $600,000 that was pulled from us. We're still fighting for full funding when it comes to foundation aid with New York State. And then we absolutely have to watch our federal funding. We are confident the federal funding, we will receive our allotment this year. We're confident in 25-26 that our federal funding will be in place. But obviously, we all know there's been a lot of changes in Washington, especially at the Department of Education. And so we're watching after the 25-26 school year, and we'll have a lot of advocacy and a lot of conversations with our elected officials to ensure that federal funding stays in place, because it really does go help our underserved populations here at Sweet Home. So a lot of work to be done there, but it's important that we keep our federal funding.
What have you heard as far as on-time budget?
It will not,
All
we will
right.
not have one. I've heard it will not happen. So that's another thing we need to monitor with our legislators. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
What have you heard?
same thing. Nowhere.
Not a chance.
Exactly.
We're going to be making a budget where we do not have all the I mean, we have a guess, a good guess, but
Correct.
Yeah, last year was a strain for sure. And then when it did get approved and we found out we were cut. Now I will say that we found our reason for the cut, or the reason they told us anyway, was our total allocation of pupil funds or pupil unit funds, sorry. We believe that number is dead on this year in the foundation aid formula. So we're not expecting, if there is a cut, that would be the reason. But we're not expecting a cut of our state aid this year. Any questions from the board?
So just one quick question. Are we cutting teachers?
Nope. No, we are not.
And sure.
No.
Program.
Are we cutting programs?
No.
Go figure.
We go back to the world language position.
Yes.
Where are we with languages being taught in the high school?
So we are trying to find a French teacher right now. And German, unfortunately, has been very difficult to find. So currently we are phasing it out of the high school, just based on staffing.
Okay. Latin teachers are long gone, right?
I'm sorry. Latin, yes. Latin is,
Teachers, when was?
yes.
Can't forget.
That was long.
You'll end up with just Spanish. Is that really where we're heading?
I hope to find a French, we hope to find a French teacher. Yeah. Yeah.
Our
We are
German-
advertising for one right now. If anybody knows, anybody.
Our German kids, though, that have gone through the
Yes.
process are being taken care of so they
Yes.
don't lose that credit.
Yeah, when I say phase out, that means we are taking care of the students who have entered that program and making sure that they have all the credits available to them throughout their senior year.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? All right, thank you.
So that brings us to our budget study session number 2. I'm going to stay here and run kind of both things here with my notes. So if you have questions along the way, please feel free to let me know. So again, just to bring it back for all of us, these are the budget, kind of our overall process and school board elections important dates. We've hit some of them, as Dr. Genestri made mention in his presentation. We do have a final tax cap calculation. The tax cap calculation has been submitted to the Office of the State Comptroller in time for the deadline, which was March 1st. Going forward, for those that might be interested in running for the school board, the terms of Brian Leibel and Dirk Rabinold expire on June 30th, 2025. Petitions for those board seats are due to district office on April 21st. Per New York State law, the last date for the board to adopt our proposed budget would be April 25th. You'll see shortly in a couple slides, we're going to do it a couple days before then. We do have to submit a property tax report card on April 28th. And then we have to do a required public hearing on the proposed budget from May 6th timeframe through May 13th. And then our annual district budget vote and school board election will be held on Tuesday, May 20th, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. right here in this room. I know that there was some discussion about where the location was going to be this year because of other things that are going on, including the vote on the Panther, but we've made a determination that we are going to hold the district budget vote here in Virgil's, much like we've done for the last several years, from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock on Tuesday, May 20th. And shameless plug, there'll be a Dollars for Scholars chicken barbecue then too. From that standpoint. So relative to Sweet Home, this is kind of at a point as to where we are in terms of our overall looks at the budget. As I did mention, we are in budget study session number 2. To this point, back in February, we did present to the board what we call a program maintenance budget based on the executive budget proposal, and began to really establish objectives and priorities from that standpoint. Tonight, you'll see kind of an update on our overall budget, any revenue updates that we have. And then as Dr. Genestri just did, we'll in terms of staffing recommendations and what has been put into the budget. And then on April 8th, you know, again, to Mrs. Jason's point, the New York State budget is required to be fully ratified and approved by April 1st. We've not seen that the last 3 years, I think. I think it's been at least 3 years. So we are trying to build a budget with best guesses at this point in time from the New York State Governor's Office, Assembly, and Senate from that standpoint. Our board, regardless of what happens in New York State, will approve the budget. We'll vote to approve the budget on Tuesday, April 22nd. And then again, as I say, the annual budget vote will be held on Tuesday, May the 20th. So when we left you in February, these were some of the steps that we needed to kind of work through and get ready for this evening's presentation. So we did need to determine where the board was with the tax cap and our use of reserves. We've settled the tax cap. We'll talk about reserves here in a few minutes. We've worked through the retirements, its overall impact on staffing and the budget. We've obviously, per Dr. Ginestri's presentation tonight, we are making some recommendations on additional staff, and we have got those into the budget. We will continue to monitor anything related to state aid. And as Dr. Ginestri did say, we have an update on our TAF-POO number, which for those keeping score at home is our total aidable foundation pupil unit. It is the number that the state uses to project basic foundation aid for us. So we have some good news there. We have worked to solidify our bus purchasing and funding. We've gone through the budget really line by line. We have gone through with the help of everyone BOCES to finalize our overall participation numbers and get cost estimates to that and the impact on the budget. And then this past week, I want to say Thursday, Wednesday, we did receive information from the New York 44 Trust on our health insurance contribution rates. And there is an increase, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So we have adjusted and made adjustments based upon all of that work. And we are ready to report back to the board here tonight. We were scheduled for last week, but we postponed to this week. So we are on target for March 18th. So on the revenue side, there are four real kind of major areas that impact the revenue side of the budget: state aid, real property tax and the tax cap, sales tax, and the use of reserves. So I'll touch on all of them. State aid, we've, again, no movement on state aid at this point. We're still waiting on the budgetary approval from the state to see what our final aid runs look like. But again, we do have an update on the TAF-POO number, which is our total aidable foundation pupil unit. Last year, and you can see on the bottom in that chart that we did for you, last year, we saw from the time that the executive budget was out to the time that the New York State budget was approved, we saw a decrease, unbeknownst to us, of our overall TAF-POO number by 73 kids. And what that translated to for us was a loss in aid of about $380,000. Couple that with the fact that although we were promised to be fully funded for foundation aid, we saw a further increase in foundation aid of about $300,000. So we were in the neighborhood of about $600,000 to $700,000 short in what we expected to receive. So now, if you look in that chart, in January, our TAF-POO count from the executive budget was 4,279 kids. The TAF-POO count in February, which is what our state aid number is run from, is 4,281 kids, which is an increase of 2 kids. So we should not see any decrease in our overall foundation aid. Yes, Mr.
Don,
Johnson.
quickly, obviously, we don't have nearly 4,300 kids in this, in the school district. Can you do a brief explanation of what TAFPU means? I know, but I mean,
Well, there's certain weighted numbers that are assigned to students. There's your general education student, there's ELL students, there's special education students. So for each of those students, depending upon how that student is classified, they're given a weighted number to get us to over the total number of kids that we have.
is it possible for there to be more than one category and even higher number? That I don't know.
Depending upon, generally speaking, the highest number for the kid, however the kid is classified, the highest number is assigned to that student.
Thanks.
Sure. Property taxes and the tax cap. We did file the final tax cap to New York State and the Office of State Comptroller. We are at a 0.4% increase in our overall tax cap increase, which means that we can increase the total levy from this current year to next year by 0.4%, which translates to about an increase of $218,000. When we presented to you in February, we talked about the idea of some rollover funds because we did not go to the full cap last year. We've learned, and again, we had never done this before. We've learned from the State Comptroller's Office that we are not eligible for rollover funds, and I'll talk about that in a coming slide. Our sales tax, we'll talk about that in a coming slide, but our third quarter payment, remember, we receive sales tax from the county quarterly. We've received 2 quarters, half of our sales tax thus far. Our next one is due to come March 28th. And we will obviously make any sort of adjustments as needed, but we feel as though that our estimate there for the current school year, 24-25, and the 25-26 school year is pretty spot on. So we feel pretty good about that. And then the last area is the use of reserves to close any potential budgetary gaps. Based upon what has come in from the revenue side, what we've done is we've maintained our reserve usage consistent with what we've done last year, and that was to the tune of $350,000. Any questions on the revenue side to this point?
Those TAFU numbers, who determines that classification
Who determines?
for the student? Is it something we do internally? And
So yeah, we do. It's based upon, it's information that we put into the state database. Then they draw from that based upon how the students are classified and assign us the TAFPU number.
Okay, so it's something, I guess, is it being reviewed just to make sure that
Yeah.
we're getting, you know, the most
Yeah, last year was,
we can?
last year was a very unique year. I've never seen in my time state aid pulled at the budget approval phase by the government. So we studied it this year. We're on it and we know that we're looking at that number. So there's no, you know, I know it was what, April 30th surprise this year.
Yeah, I'm more wondering, like, you know, if the student is classified one way and then you find out after the fact, or you look into it deeper and find, well, they had some extra services or things that initially, so this is like reviewed for every student every year?
It's
or-
really at
Yeah,
Bed
it's
Stay.
based on bed stay data.
Yeah, so that day in October, that's kind of like where we are on that day in October. Then we submit that to the state and that's what they use for the year.
Okay. So the tax cap. The tax cap, as Dr. Genestri had said earlier on, is 2%. For districts, obviously there's some exclusions that go into that, but the tax cap is really, it's 2% or CPI, whichever is less. CPI this year ended up at about 2.8%. So the tax cap levy limit minus any sort of exclusions for every district across the state is 2%. You then take that number and multiply it by the tax base allowable tax base growth factor. And in 2024, our allowable tax base growth factor was 1.016. This year, the State Comptroller's Office has decreased that number by to a flat 1%. So generally speaking, the State Comptroller has said that they've decreased our allowable tax base growth by 1.6%. So if you look at our levy this year, kind of in that right-hand side, you look at our levy, our overall levy this year is $54,268,072. If our allowable tax base growth factor remained at 1.016 this year, our allowable levy would be $55,136,361. However, because of that, it remains at 1. It's basically saying that we cannot, minus any exclusions, we cannot raise our overall tax levy. So our tax levy remains the same. So by decreasing our growth factor number by 1.6%, the financial impact to the district is about $868,000, which is those two numbers subtracted from one another. And then this is our tax cap. Our tax cap for the 24-25 school year, as mentioned, is 0.4%. It's translates to a dollar amount of $218,590. As I mentioned, our growth factor is a flat 1 this year, as opposed to the 1.016 last year. And again, this is where we were talking in February about potentially some rollover numbers, rollover use of levy. I had conversations in February with some colleagues. I had conversations with the State Education Department, and I was pretty solid that we were allowed to do rollover funds. When I met with our contact at the Office of State Comptroller, they said you can, as long as your levy from the current year is less than your permissible levy before adding all of our exclusions. So you'll see there that our actual levy is $54,268,072. Before exclusions to our overall levy, it's our levy is $49,571,311. Because that number, the permissible levy, is less than our actual levy, we are not eligible for any sort of rollover funds. As such, I own that mistake. That's a mistake on my part. Our levy, allowable levy for a simple majority vote come May 20th is 0.4% or $218,590. Sales tax, again, this was just a kind of a repeat of a slide that we gave you back in February. Last year, we saw sales tax proceeds to the district to the tune of $5,424,139. You see on the right-hand column for the present year, we've received just short of $2.5 million from that. We believe that we will track to get to our estimate, and we are estimating our sales tax receipts for the 25-26 school year to be $5.6 million. Since we last met, these are a couple of items that we're using to kind of look at and close our revenue gap. So Dr. Genestri talked in detail about the UPK special classroom in an integrated setting. We have received conditional approval from the State Education Department for up to 3 classrooms in 25-26. Each of those classes must have at least 6 to 8 students on an IEP. We've estimated that our classrooms would have 8 students with an IEP, and then that grant funding would be given to us to kind of work through the general fund to allow us to fund a number of things, including a special education, portions of salaries of special education teachers, portions of salaries of school psychologists, of really anything that might have direct or indirect contact with that classroom. Custodial salaries, supplies, materials, portions of administrator salaries, things along those lines. We are right now, again, we've received conditional approval for the classrooms themselves. We are in the business office working with NICEAD's rate setting unit to finalize kind of our overall budget for these. We believe that the classes would generate, upwards of $400,000 for each of the classroom. So we are putting into the general fund $1.2 million of funding from that standpoint. We also are working with Erie One BOCES. Erie One BOCES has expressed an interest in, as you know, they have a portion of Dexter Terrace, North Downs Academy. They've expressed some interest in doing a summertime program this summer at North Downs, and we are working with them on kind of finalizing costs, but we would expect that we would see $50,000 in additional rent this coming next year for the use of our facility over the summertime.
When we talk about some of the schools, we talk about the space constraints. Do we have space for those
We
three
do.
classrooms?
We do. They'd be integrated into our existing classroom spaces. So on the revenue side, based upon all of these additions and changes to the tax cap, our 25-26 revenue estimate as we sit here today is $105,513,012. It's an increase of a little over $5.1 million, or a 5.1% year-to-year increase. On the expense side, again, we've talked about these things before, but just, for the good of the audience, we do have several known budgetary impacts. We have the service employees contract, which includes our confidential employees. They are on a 6% annual increase. Our Shea teacher contract, they have a 2% annual step increase, but those folks receive step plus increment. And then our SHASA admins, we have a tentative agreement in place, but that tentative agreement ends up at a 3.5% annual increase. We have budgetary bus purchases, $147,000 increase in bus purchases to just over $1 million in bus purchases. We have a debt service increase of $80,000. We have contracted transportation increase of $500,000, as Dr. Genestri had said. We will look to kind of depending upon how things hash out with the new kind of walking radiuses and things along those lines. We'll likely look to rebid our contracted transportation. We feel pretty good about seeing some cost savings from where we are currently this year. Our special education budget, we are, as Dr. God bless you, as Dr. Genestri had said, we are seeing an increase of $1.3 million. Our school tuitions, charter school tuitions, an increase of $200,000. Utilities across the district, $100,000. The teacher retirement incentive remains in the budget at about $745,000, which is about 10 or 11 retirements. Our BOCES participation increase of about $480,000. That includes anything from PD to technology services, things along those lines. And then the New York 44 trust rates were just announced, as we said last week. We are anticipating an increase right now of about $700,000. Quite frankly, I haven't had an opportunity to go through it all because it's so new, but we'll provide updates on a more solid estimate for next meeting. And then from a staffing perspective, it incorporates the budget that we're sharing now, incorporates all the staffing as part of the plan presented to the board this evening.
How many kids do we have in charter schools?
You know, Nicole, I don't know how many kids in charter
Charter
school
schools.
kids? Somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah.
Okay.
So here's just kind of a quick snapshot of the New York 44 Trust plan rates. We are part of the traditional plan through the New York 44 Trust. So there are 4 categories of health insurance coverage. There's a single plan. That single plan it would see an increase from the current year of 2%. The employee and spouse or domestic partner would also see an increase of about 2%. The enrollee or employee plus child or children would see an increase of about 6.5%. And then a traditional family plan would see an increase of 7% from the current year. You see there are contribution rates for each of our associations. Contribution rate for the Teachers Association, the Educators Association is 13%, the Administrators Association also 13%, and the Service Employees 10%. So I know that that last line is hard to read, but we are anticipating an increase of about $694,000, which is about a 6.2% increase. Again, because we just got these numbers, I'll have to go through them more closely to get a more solid estimate, but to the best estimate as we sit tonight, that's where we're at.
2 questions, Don. Do you know about how many people are in each of these 4 different categories?
I do. So right now we have 573 employees that are enrolled in a district-sponsored health plan. Single folks that take advantage of the single plan are 155. Folks that take advantage of the employee and spouse or domestic partner is 93. Folks that take advantage of the employee plus child or children is 42. And folks that take advantage of the family plan is 283, which is about 49% of our total overall enrollment.
Okay, thank you. And the second one is the monthly COBRA rate. What is that for? I know the term COBRA, but I don't know what that's.
That's generally if folks opt out of health insurance and need health insurance in the event of either termination or something along those lines.
Okay, thank you.
So as we sit tonight, our overall budget snapshot, as I mentioned, we have a budgetary revenues budgeted at $105,513,012, which is a year-to-year increase of 5.1%. Our total tax levy would increase to $54,486,662. That's going right to the cap. That is a simple majority to pass. That is an increase of 0.4%. And then based upon where we are today, our budgetary expenditures total out to be $105,464,831, which is a flat 5% increase from year to year. So if you do the math and subtract the expenditures from the revenues, we have a surplus of $48,000 from that standpoint. So the obligatory tax rate impact, I always make a qualifying statement here. We use to kind of estimate tax impact, we use assessment values for this current year because obviously they've not been released from the towns. We keep the equalization rates as what they are in the current year. So for Amherst, the equalization rate is currently at 100%. The Tonawanda equalization rate is currently at 23%. And these rates are based on going to the tax cap limit of $54,486,662. We've traditionally used, before the town the town of Amherst went to full assessment, we've traditionally used $150,000 as kind of an average home. That's probably not accurate, so you'll see in the next couple of slides kind of the impact on higher assessed homes. But for $150,000 assessed home, based upon these things, residents in the town of Amherst would see an estimated tax bill of $1,455, which is an increase of $4. And then on the Tonawanda side, the increase would translate to a bill of $1,463 or an annual increase of $6. This next slide is for a $250,000 assessment, translates to an increase for a town of Amherst resident of $7, for a town of Tonawanda resident of $9. And then the last is a $350,000 estimate. I would say this is probably closer for us, the $250,000 estimate on an average home. And then this is kind of a higher end. The $350,000 assessment would see an estimated increase in their tax bill in town of Amherst of $10. And in the town of Tonawanda of $13. Realistically, and I don't quote me on this, but when we receive the assessment values from the town over the summertime, I would honestly expect that those numbers would probably be a little bit less, but because of our tax levy, our tax cap number being only 4%, you can see it's a minimal increase from that standpoint.
And for full transparency, again, nothing's final until we get those finals in August.
Correct. We work with the towns and the county really in July and August, and then we make a recommendation based upon the numbers that we receive from the towns and the county to the board for the August meeting, and tax rates are approved at that point in time.
Don, I just want to say thanks for adding the additional ones.
Oh, sure.
They're more realistic for
Sure.
what we're talking about.
Sure. So the last slide that I have, we need to do some work kind of going through some things here as we get to our approval date of April 22nd. As I made mention, we need to work through and solidify our New York 44 Trust health insurance numbers. Again, because we got them, I haven't just had an opportunity to go through and do real hard and fast math on them. We will hopefully get some news from State Education Department on the specialized classroom and integrated setting. We'll continue to take a look at salary lines and get those as best we can. And then we'll monitor the New York State budgetary process and any potential impacts on state aid as we go forward. As we've said, the New York State budget is due on April 1st. I'm not holding my breath. I'm going to gather that you will likely have to approve a school district budget before the New York State budget is passed. Just where we are. And then we will work through these bullet points and make any adjustments to the overall budget and report back to the BOE on our April 8th study session. So I did want to just real quickly, before I forgot. So this number, the 0.4, and Dr. Genestri touched on it a little bit. From 2020, I have to get this right, from 2023 to the current year, 24-25, our last capital improvement project, the building aid hit our books. So we received a significant increase in building aid. Building aid is one of the exclusions. Because we saw such an increase in building aid, that really necessitated the smaller tax cap figure. Going forward, our building aid, because the project will be on the books for an extended period of time, our building aid will level out, and I would expect that our tax cap would look more like it has in years past. Kind of in that 1.3, $1.4 million range. This year just was an anomaly. That's all it was. So from that standpoint. So I'll go back. I think that was my last slide. I guess I would ask if the board has any questions at this point in time.
Just, for a point of order, I guess, because it's a hearing, is this open to the public at this point, or do they? have to wait?
This particular one is not a hearing.
It is not.
It is not a hearing. The hearing will take place at the first budgetary meeting in May.
The hearing in April be open to the public for questions.
Again, not a hearing in
Not a
April.
hearing.
Correct.
This is not classified as a hearing, so I misunderstood that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, so let me just, if I can, a
Sure.
comment, which I come from a little of the conservative side here with finances, as you know. It looks like you've done a very good job with taking care of the taxpayer. But again, here, we have an increase in the budget of $5 million, right? So whether it's coming from grants or somewhere else, at some point, my concern is, well, those grants, those fundings, those things from the state, the foundation aid, and all that stuff we kind of advocate for to continue. What do we do? I mean, at some point, we, the taxpayers, I would believe, are going to be caught holding the bag on that. Do you think about that at all? Or you must think about
Well,
it.
of course, we think about it. I would say, it's our job, and it's really honestly why we start the budgetary process as early as we do. When we start talking about the budget in December, it's our job to present a budget and work with the board to present a budget that is both programmatically sound as well as fiscally responsible for our taxpayers. We have never, the board, it really honestly, and I don't want to speak for your colleagues on the board, but this is my 5th year in this seat. In my 5 years and in my time before then, the board has always kind of mandated that we stay below the tax cap. So we'll continue to do that unless, things may change. The specter of losing grant funding is real, honestly. But I will also say, and we'll have to work through that. We'll have to find solutions to do that. We have reserves. We could look at using more reserves. But also, over the course of time, to your point about the growth of the budget, you saw in Dr. Genestri's presentation that in 5 short years, we've gained 500 almost kids in enrollment. So honestly, that's the kind of the translation from that standpoint. That growth in enrollment is really driving a lot of our overall costs. We see an uptick in kids that are classified as special ed. You saw that was $1.3 million from that standpoint. Really honestly, the major expenses in the budget are from staff salaries to contracted transportation to special education costs to health and to health insurance and health benefits from that standpoint. So, we'll continue to look at things. We feel, as Dr. Genestri had said in his presentation, we feel good about the grant funding, not only for this year, but for next. If I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you what we would do, but I don't know what's going to happen from that standpoint.
I got a question. The rollover for the tax cap. Because we're at 0.4 this year, then are we eligible to potentially have more, or is that the cap now for this year?
No, so Mr. Leibel, it's a good question. So we have a number of exclusions. So the tax cap provides you with a couple of numbers. The tax cap gives you kind of a permissible increase in the tax levy. You take that number and then add all of our exclusions. So all of our exclusions include bus purchases, include debt service, and include building and transportation aid. So because our exclusions to the tax cap are so high in terms of those numbers, that's about $4 or $5 million for us. I don't foresee an area where minus the exclusions, that our levy will get to a point where we're allowed to do any sort of rollover. So our number, quite frankly, in my opinion, is what it is.
Okay.
There's,
And, you know, I did notice, just as a comment, the that growth factor, it's like 90% of the districts have an increase, which would have increased funding a few $100,000. And, you know, we're one of the few that didn't, which is kind of surprising because every spring I look out and I see more construction being done and, you know,
yeah,
trees taken down and whatnot.
You know, it's funny.
So, it's just-
On the flip side of that coin, I would say, just in conversations with my colleagues across Huron and BOCES, if the district saw a significant increase in foundation aid, which Sweet Home did, their allowable growth factor went down. If they didn't see a significant increase in foundation aid, their allowable growth factor either remained the same or went up. So
Game we play.
it's a game. It's a game. Any other questions from the board at all?
Since you have your crystal ball out and we're talking in the future and stuff, I'm sure we'll hear a report from the town supervisor. Are we still on track with our Boulevard Mall project as we move forward and gain our kids?
You're voting on an easement for sewer work tonight.
For Costco?
No, this is for the,
This one.
it's on the agenda. It's for sewer work and infrastructure work to get to the Boulevard Mall.
Okay.
So to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if the superintendent knows
Yeah.
differently, that project is moving forward.
Moving forward. Yep. It has been a few months since I've spoken with the supervisor, but so I owe him a call, so. let's see if I can-
Costco moving forward.
I saw structure there today, so.
Good.
We're moving stone every day.
Go up there.
Getting ready for
I tell you
baseball
what, we'll get you'll be the first membership card.
Isn't that- Costco,
You promised that, not me.
Thank you. Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
I'm gonna say,
Oh.
I'm gonna say one last thing. I'm
Sure.
Sorry, I just can't help myself. So it looks like in your proposal here, the average home is gonna go up $7 or the levy will go up $248,000 roughly.
Correct.
Together. Now, if we, again, this is a sensitive topic here, and I know there's some start time people here tonight. If we were to put out to the public some additional increase in that, still under the cap, or is that the cap?
I'm sorry, I'm not following your question. An increase
What do
to-
you-
We're at the cap.
We're at the cap.
Yes.
Round numbers, bringing that money in, would we find additional funds, either in reserves or some other places, to do away with the start-stop times? Is it close enough in that 248,000 plus some other money to possibly do away with the start-stop time? I'm trying to get you to just say, what is the number that we need to do away with the start-stop times?
Well,
Oh, it's a sensitive.
no, it's not. I appreciate the question. I couldn't even begin to guess in terms from that standpoint. It would really depend upon what the start and stop times look like for me to be able to put a cost to it. We've made a recommendation to move from kind of our staggered elementary times to a flat elementary time. If those things went back to how they were, there's implications there. So from that standpoint, quite honestly, I could get you numbers. I'm just not comfortable in answering it now based upon, I don't have all the information.
I just, for my own sake, I'm just curious what that would do to the budget.
So, well, we are at the tax cap right now.
Okay.
We are at the, if there were any additional costs to that, we would have to go above the tax cap. Obviously, the board would have to decide to do that. And if we went above the tax cap, it would require a 60% approval rate of our budget on May 20th.
It'd be interesting to see if they got a vote for that, but that's just me.
Yeah,
Or we take it from reserves or somewhere else. All right, in saying that?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure. Any other questions from the board? Okay, we will report
Thanks,
back
Mr.
on April 8th. I apologize for the length, but nonetheless, here we are.
Just a couple more things. We talked last week about the smartphone task force. I know Dr. Wilson's working on that now, and made some progress on finding members this week. So I don't know if you have an update.
Actually, the communication is going out this week
Okay.
to extend an
Okay.
offer. So.
Yep, and we definitely want students part of that.
And
yep,
parents,
yep.
parents?
Our
Oh, I have a
content-
question on the
Yes.
smartphone. I assume that also includes smart watches.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, devices.
And
yeah.
earbuds.
And earbuds.
Yes, it's any communication.
Okay.
Yep.
It also depends on what they approve for law, because
Yeah,
Thank you. Yep.
the one house budgets have, both of them have come back with different things that the governor proposed.
So while we want to get ahead of the work, we have no idea what the regs will be yet. Or even if there will be, but we want to get ahead of it because we know there's work to be done. Our Panther contest is in full swing and we met with 26 shirts. All of the final concepts are in development with 26 shirts now. And we will be ready to put them on display for the public to have plenty of time to come vote here in Virgil's on May 20th for your favorite logo concept. So we'll announce soon after the budget vote what the official Panther will be, and then we will make it part of our branding guide here in the district. Want to thank our partners at 26 Shirts for working with us. We met with them earlier in the week or late last week, and just they're excited to be part of this project, and to know that this is student art really even motivates them more. So we're ready, and we will have updates as the concepts get developed. I was fortunate enough to attend Once Upon a Mattress this weekend on Saturday night. Just a phenomenal show. Kudos to everybody from the cast, the crew, our chaperones and adults that were a part of this incredible production. I know it takes hundreds of people to make this work. The music was phenomenal. And it was just great to be in our auditorium, hear crisp sound and see great lights. And our students certainly were up for the task. So I hope everybody got to see it. And it was just a phenomenal show. So it's kudos to our students involved and to all of the people involved with the music and the crew and the stage. Just a phenomenal job on Saturday night. And then I continue to get asked a lot about federal funding, and I wanted to put this slide on display because I want our public to understand what categories of federal funding that we have in our district right now. So title funds are really there to serve the underserved, basically throughout the country. We have IDEA grants that service special education students. We have grants for ELL and immigrant students, universal pre-K and pre-K expansion up there. So right now, the rolling grants that we get on a yearly basis are about $3.5 million. And a lot of those grants are tied to salaries. So it is important that we continue to advocate that these monies continue to flow to districts throughout the country because they really do serve an important population for us, and they really make a difference here at Sweet Home. So this does not include Medicaid funding or Medicaid reimbursement. This does not include our EPA grant for electric busing. But these are the rolling grants that we do get on a yearly basis and the number of staff members that are tied to them. So I don't put these up there to scare anybody. I put them up there to ask that we continue to advocate not only for this money, but for more. And it goes to an amazing use for our students. It is important that we keep these programs in place.
Dr. Genestri, are these staff, it says staff members, so are these teachers and aides? Are these
Yes.
teachers? Okay,
Yep,
so it's
they're stepped up.
everybody.
Yes.
And this is this current academic year, so does it include the new grant that we just talked about for UPK?
It does not. That's a state grant. So.
Perfect.
Yep. And then finally, I just want to say, on the agenda tonight is a new collective bargaining agreement with our Administrators and Supervisors Association. I want to thank the leadership of SHASA for working with us through the fall and into the winter to complete this contract and put it up for your vote tonight. Obviously, we work hand in hand with our administrators, and their work here in the district does not get recognized enough for all the time and effort that they put in with our students and in their buildings and in their departments. And I can't thank them enough for the work that they do. And I am confident in saying that the contract reflects that work. So I just want to say thank you again to SHASA members that were on the leadership team and that voted in favor for this tentative agreement, and excited to move forward with our administrators into the future. It's a 4-year agreement. And again, just want to say thank you to their membership for continually putting students first. And that's all I have tonight.
Any questions for Dr. Genestri? Okay, Willow Ridge hit, wait, what's today? That was last week. DEI committee meeting is tomorrow, as well as Heritage STEM Night. Maple Mere has a winter dance coming. We've got some music festivals coming up for the high school. And then our PTA starts up again. This brings us to our first open session. In accordance with Board Policy 1510, 2 open sessions will be held at tonight's Board of Education meeting. During the first open session, comments must focus on the agenda items for this meeting. Speakers must be at least 16 years old, limit their comments to 3 minutes, and state which agenda item they are addressing. Speakers should announce their name, address, and group affiliation if applicable. Non-district residents must also include their business name or how they engage with the board. Participants are expected to address comments to the board president, not individual board members, and may not discuss specific individuals or executive session topics. The second open session will allow speakers to address topics appropriate for public discussion. The same rules and time limits apply. Please note that the board and the administration are not permitted to respond to the comments during these sessions. Thank you for your cooperation. We have 1 person signed up. Karen Silsby, you can speak first.
Corinne Silsby,
Sorry
219
about
Park
that.
Forest Drive. That's all right. I get it all the time. So good evening. I am a proud parent of 3 children, 1 at Maplemere and 2 at the middle school. My husband and I have been incredibly grateful for the support and exceptional education our children have received at Maplemere Elementary. We are also very pleased with their experiences at the middle school, where teachers and administrators work together for the benefit of our students. I have always felt honored that my children have found a home in Sweet Home. Both schools prioritize leadership development, and we are incredibly grateful that our children are learning to use their voices, take initiative, and advocate for themselves and others. These skills are essential, not just for their education, but for their future successes. But while we teach leadership to our students, it is just as important that adults model it. The Board of Education represents the community. They are the voice of the district. True leadership means not just making decisions, but actively engaging with those affected by them. It means modeling how to build community by communicating openly and honestly with all stakeholders. When leadership is rooted in transparency, respect, and collaboration, it strengthens the entire district and sets the example our children deserve. I stand before you because I can no longer stay silent. Sweet Home is not the district it once was, and it's time to address the issues that are hurting our students, our teachers, and our community. What has frustrated me and so many others since the teacher contract negotiations is the lack of transparency and communication from both the board and superintendent. When our teachers, some of the most dedicated and caring professionals, were struggling for a fair contract, the administration chose to bring in outside help rather than work collaboratively with the educators who shape our children's futures. That decision didn't make sense then, and the continued dismissiveness toward teachers, staff, and families doesn't make sense now. Sweet Home used to be a district that worked together. But what I've seen in the last few years contradicts everything I once knew about this community. Decisions are being made behind closed doors. Concerns about budget cuts, staffing reductions, increased class sizes, transportation issues are not being addressed openly. Parents, teachers, and even board members who raise concerns are silenced. Our district keeps making the news, but not for the right reasons. It's time for that to change. I, along with many others in the room, am tired of feeling unheard. Every stakeholder in this district, students, parents, teachers, staff, and administrators deserve a voice, and yet too many are being shut out of the conversations that directly impact our children's education. We need leadership that values transparency, fairness, and collaboration. We need a board and administration that listens to and respects the people who make Sweet Home what it is. So tonight I ask you, what kind of district do you want Sweet Home to be? Do you want to continue down this path of division, secrecy, and lost trust? Or do you want to restore the collaboration, respect, and community that once made this district great? We are here because we care. We are asking for honesty, fairness, and a seat at the table. Our students, staff, and principals deserve better. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak tonight?
Hi, I'm Jessica Stevens. I live in the district and I have 2 children currently in the district. Okay. Today I'm speaking up about Sweet Home's dismal music program. At the elementary level, the band teacher has 200 students. We have 1 orchestra teacher for 4 elementary schools. Elementary orchestra meets only once a week after school, and elementary music lessons are only once a week as well. At the middle school level, students, at least orchestra students that I can speak for, meet for lessons only 1 out of 10 school days, and that's only if there isn't an assembly or other schedule change that makes the students miss their lesson. Then it would be 1 out of 20 days. My 5th grade daughter attended All County this weekend. Most people in our community aren't even aware that last weekend was All County, and even more have no idea what All County is. For those who don't know, it's the Erie County Music Educators Association. It's a collection of talented students from all around the county who come together to perform as a group. Students try out to be a part of All County, performing a piece of music leveled for difficulty, as well as scale, sight reading, and other things. This is a huge deal for the students, an amazing opportunity to feed their interest in music. This year, elementary All County took place at Kleinhans Music Hall. There was very little mention of this, especially since our middle school was the host school this year. When I dropped off my daughter, which was the sole elementary orchestra student at Sweet Home who made it into All County, At the middle school for one of her rehearsals, I saw buses of students representing other schools, buses full of orchestra, band, and chorus students. Elementary All County includes grades 4 to 6, by the way. Our elementary chorus teachers do not have a schedule that even allows them to work with students. Doesn't give them enough time to prepare them to even audition. They can still audition, they just don't have the time to really work on it with the teachers. Oh. As it stands with our current music funding and staffing, our teachers are stretched thin, and only students who are privileged enough to afford the time and money for private lessons, like me, have a chance at making it in. It was embarrassing to be the host school this year with hardly any representation. We can do better. Our sports programs are well-funded, as they should be. We are long overdue to properly fund our music programs. And on that note, let's give these students the proper recognition for these accomplishments in trying out and making it. And I'm not speaking just for my child. She gets plenty of praise. I'm speaking for all the children who make it into All County and All State as well. Whew. We always seem to know when there's a football game. And again, as we should, but we don't always know when these music programs like All County happen. Sorry, I get flustered at the time. And I know that I'll make it real quick. I know that there's budget concerns. I know that what I'm asking requires money. But if we can hire an athletic trainer for $59,000, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but if we have the funds to do that, we have the funds to support our music program. And that's all I ask for tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Stewart. I reside in the Maple-Mere area. I am the president of the Sweet Home Music Parents Association. Many of you board members know me. I'm also very involved in the musical. I've spoken to the administration, and I am so grateful for your time that you have given to us. And I realize that we are in tremendous budget cuts. The one thing that I would ask that you focus on and look at as our growth happens is that we fund our music program as well as other programs when we grow. Our music program, especially the elementary school program, is at its max. What Mr. Busnick does and what Jackie does is amazing. Their student to teacher ratio is unbelievable. And you probably don't realize this, but out of their day, because they work in different buildings, they actually go from building to building, and then they come here and set up for the rehearsals for the 4th and 5th graders that come. It's an hour to set up and an hour to replace and reset everything for the groups to come back in. That's a lot of staff time that they give to those kids. And it doesn't just happen with them. That means that since the rehearsals are here at the high school, that means that the high school teachers also, all 3 of the high school teachers are helping them set up and tear down. And they're a really good team. I can tell you from my own experience, they're a very good team at working together and pulling together to try to fill in those pinches. And I am so grateful that Dr. Wilson has mentioned to us that we can get some admin help to help with Mr. Budnick's rental program that we desperately need. When you deal with a lot of rentals and a lot of paperwork and you don't have an admin in the department to handle that, it either will fall on your volunteers or it's going to fall on the graciousness of someone staying after. And Mr. Budnick and Mr. Morrow have put in countless hours to make sure that that happens. And I'm grateful so much that you are going to help us get that done. The one thing that I would ask you to look at as a board with the growth of this program is to please look at our elementary schools, that if you're looking at growing them, please look for a way to incorporate a performance area for them so that there is a place that if you're going to grow the cafeterias, grow that performance space so that they have a place that they have set, that they can go and rehearse. It's going to save you on busing and getting them there, but it's also going to save staff time that can be better used to help our children with their lessons. The other thing that I would like to mention is I know that a lot of parents are not happy about the start time with all of the elementary schools. But if you knew the impact that it has on the music teachers, having classes come 15 minutes, 20 minutes, it cuts into the rehearsal time. So it's extremely important that these buses and the kids are getting to the high school at the same time. And again, I've talked to several of you. We could use 2.5 positions. I know that there's not funding for that. I understand that. But I would really like to look at some grants to bring in some more funding for our music program. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Jonathan Mickley. I'm a community member, live at 5 Durham Drive. I just wanted to make a comment in regards to what I saw with the budget presentation earlier. I noticed that it was said that it's expected that there'd be some consolidation of programs, and I fear that I and presumably others would be interested at some point to know what that would look like as the details get planned out. Hopefully there'll be further updates to the public as to what the scope of those consolidations would be and what programs would end up being affected by that. Thank you.
Mind if I respond to that?
I have no objection.
It's just it's a consolidation of grade levels, Mr. Makeley, and no programs are being consolidated, so.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jessica Gettner. I'm an Orchard Park resident, but I'm a teacher at Maplemere. I just noticed that Maplemere has the highest student-faculty ratio among all 4 elementary schools, and it also serves the highest L population and special ed students in our district. Additionally, we are one of the highest performing elementary schools, not just at Sweet Home, but in our surrounding areas. Given the class sizes across the district seem to be relatively similar, could you help us understand why we are one of the only schools that are consolidating positions? Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, moving on. All right, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda on items A through P?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Brings us to informational items. Maisha, would you like to start?
Yeah, okay. To start off with the musical again, this weekend wrapped up Once Upon a Mattress. The students started this whole process back in November, and there was so much time and effort put into the musical. Once Upon a Mattress was a semifinalist in the She's Wonder Awards, so a huge congrats and thank you once again to the cast and crew and everyone who dedicated their time in bringing the show to life. Next, another update on movie night. Thanks to Dr. Genestri, student government has gotten permission to utilize the auditorium to stream Spider-Man No Way Home, which was decided through a survey that was sent out to all the students. Movie night will be on April 2nd, right after school, so students will only need to arrange their own transportation home. Thanks to Mrs. Bruce, AMC will be supplying us with huge bags of popcorn and posters. We have teachers and students from both student government and National Honor Society volunteering for decorations, setup, and cleanup. So we anticipate this to be a big free event for everyone, just in time for before our prep rally leading into spring break. Next, members from our student government's Food and Nutrition and Environmental Action Committee toured Central Kitchen with Mrs. Sajak and Mr. Truesdell. We discussed the pros and cons of ideas such as bringing back the salad bar, a compost bin to reduce waste, and everyday food options like fruit cups, yogurt, and chicken nuggets for the elementary school students. Next, this month is the high school's Gambling Awareness Month, which was facilitated by Mr. Isidorchik. So a big shout out to him, especially because statistics show how prominent gambling is among high school boys. He encouraged students to make slideshows, Jeopardy games, and posters, which were later presented in front of the cafeteria, and it was a huge success. Students spread awareness, provided help resources, and shared their own personal stories to support their peers who might be struggling. Our Diversity and Inclusion Committee has set up a henna stand, and it's been super nice to see everybody come up with their friends and get their henna done and celebrate cultures around the world. Tomorrow, some of our members from Student Government and National Honor Society will be volunteering at Heritage Heights STEM Night. March 21st is World Down Syndrome Day, and the high school will be participating by rocking colorful and mismatched socks to represent chromosomes in order to raise awareness and promote diversity. And lastly, today a wall was put up in the high school right when you enter to display and recognize the top 10 seniors. And we hope it'll be a way to encourage the younger classes to continue to do their best academically.
Thank you. Ms. Jason?
Hi, I know we went through our agenda spots, but I always like to stop at special education. There were 246 pages this month. I don't know if Peter, you got through them all, but I got through them all. Every single one of them. And again, every month I give a shout out to our special ed department. But I would like to say when I'm talking about special ed, I'm talking about PT, OT, speech, just the incredible job you do for our kids. So thank you for that. I went to the musical. Thank you, Christine. It was great. And I was ticket scanning. I'm on the computer stuff now, and the craft fair.
On the computer.
And the computer stuff. The craft fair, awesome craft fair, good attendance, lots of vendors. And how much did we make? Did you, well, dollars
I
for
don't
scholars.
know.
Do we have
That's
a
good
final?
question. We counted yesterday. I didn't get a final tally.
Okay, to be determined.
TBD.
All right, and that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
A couple quick things. I went to the multicultural night the other night over at Willow Ridge. Mr. Blaine, if you could share my congratulations, everybody. I think they did an awesome job there. Just walking down the food tables, which there was, I think, 14 of my counted them right. I only got through half of them, and I ate food from at least a dozen different countries. So it was, not to mention all the other things they were doing. It was pretty good just to listen to music that was being played, the activities the kids were in. I thought that was awesome. And there's a bunch of things. I'm just going to jump to one in particular. A couple of weeks back, we had a training session for first responders for our electric buses. For those of you who don't know already, and Mr. Feldman talked about them last week, our first 3 electric buses have arrived there. I saw a couple of them charging the other day. I'm assuming we're getting closer to them being ready to use.
Very soon.
Okay, cool. Anyway, the training was put on by Thomas Bus that provides these particular buses, and it covered a lot of ground. And I have to say, from my perspective, even though I've talked to some vendors about electric buses before and asked a lot of questions, just to hear everything they had to say about them and all of the safety features that were in these buses and the redundancy of the safety features was just, I was glad to hear it. The first responders that came had a lot of good things to say too. The chief of the Brighton Fire Department also works for a county emergency response in there. So he had a lot of good input on it, some things that we might have to change on how we do things, but it was just, I think it was well worth our time. And I was fascinated by the whole process. And I wrote down a number here that I was going to say. The one thing that really jumped out of me, and I don't in front of me. Yeah, the batteries. Mr. Jason was there with me. The battery that you see under the bus, each one of the batteries actually consists of over 8,000 little batteries. They're like AA size batteries to create that giant battery. They're also separated because those are the high voltage system. There's also a regular voltage system like you would have in your car, and they're separated by the two, and shutting off the regular voltage kills the high voltage stuff too. So it's just the whole process I thought was well worth our time.
Mr. Johnson, if I could just add on that, just for the good of the audience, there is a New York State mandate that says, starting in 2027, that any vehicle that the district purchases in terms of transportation needs to be zero emission, and our fleet needs to be completely zero emission by 2035. So we've been working very hard on that. But one of the things that I did want to point out, in the One House budget now, there is some talk from, I think it was the Senate side, I don't remember, but to have language in place to allow districts to ask for and receive extensions to that timeline. Whether or not it gets to the executive budget and gets to the end line and gets passed, we'll see. But there is some conversation out there about extending, either maybe not necessarily extending the deadline, but providing districts with mechanisms to request extensions to said deadline. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because I know this is the first time now since that was passed 3 years ago or whatever it was. In the years past, when I've talked with our representatives, they said there was no discussion at all. So that's actually
Yeah.
a step in the right direction. I'm not convinced that we'll see it move a lot. but
We've operated under the kind of the guise is that it's gonna be here, and we're working towards meeting the mandate.
Thanks, Todd.
Sure.
Anything else?
Yep, all set.
Thank you. Mr. Leibel?
Yeah, I also just wanted to congratulate the students and parents at Willow Ridge for their multicultural night. I know my kids participated, had a very nice time. They brought in pretzels to represent the German culture. And this year it was, there was a lot of different foods and dancing, and the Irish dancers as well. So they did a great job. The other thing I wanted to mention is there was, for the middle school, there was a club and art show exhibit at the library over here on Audubon. And so the middle school artwork was put up, which it's, they did an amazing job, and it was really fun to see, from sneakers being painted to impressionism type of things. So again, great job there. And then the clubs, there were teachers there and students who represented different clubs and organizations. So that was nice to see, and just to get to talk to everyone about what their, the various clubs that are there and what they're doing. I also wanted to mention just a retirement, which I don't normally bring up on the agenda tonight, which is my dad. After 17 years with Sweet Home, prior to that, nearly 40 years with General Motors. So this will be the first time that he won't be working, but just want to recognize him and recognize all of our bus aides, our bus drivers, and all of our frontline workers. Tonight I mentioned the multicultural night, which was put on by the PTA, our parents. I mentioned the clubs and activities, which is so much of our teachers participating and doing the extra work to give our students those opportunities. And then you have the frontline workers like my dad, who, for a number of years, I don't think he missed a day of work. And so I appreciate everything he's done, and I appreciate everything, those bus aides are sometimes the first people those students see. And the last ones sometimes they see from the district. So everyone has a purpose, but it's the one, as a parent, I've said this many times, that those who are interacting with our kids on a day-to-day basis, they're really so much of the heart and soul. And when I think of Sweet Home, I always say, what do you want? You want, those are the people you really want to do a great job. And I'm proud of all the people we have here who do such a great job. So I think, yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ravenel?
Well, thank you, Dad, for us. I'm sure the district has already extended that thank you, but that's very nice. Very nice that he does that. Yeah, I think people are the most important piece of the puzzle here at Sweet Home. And I was able to get to the March Heritage Heights PTA meeting, and they're planning on their STEM night, March 19th, and some other activities towards the end of the school year, family night and some other things. Some of the conversation did again surround this bus issue and their concerns of safety primarily. I did see some of those folks show up last week, which I was happy to see, and always, for myself, happy to see participation and speaking at these meetings. I know isn't easy, but we appreciate that. I appreciate that. So St. Patty's Day, I was out and about and ran into, believe it or not, a fellow that drove a bus for Laidlaw, and had a little bit of conversation there about his union and what happens there. Also ran into a young fella that just completed the training for another school district, who was bragging about what a great part-time job this will be for me. And at night he tends bar or whatever he does, but it works real well with the benefits and anything. So maybe that's an area we can, in the future, look for recruits from maybe those young folks that are working nights and would like something during the day. So again. It happened to be St. Patty's Day.
As long as they're not hungover.
And they were
I'll let you handle that one, Mr. Rabenel.
folks there, so I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't mind, by the way. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Anthem?
Yep. Okay. So no PTA at Glendale this month, but they do have a McTeacher night happening on March 20th from 4:30 to 7:30 at the McDonald's on the corner of Sheridan and Sweet Home. Our Glendale PTA president is here tonight. She has my Girl Scout cookies, so if anybody wants to hang out afterwards. So I wanted to give a special shout out to all of our special education students who participated in the Saba Ice Show today. Well, I'm going to try not to cry while I'm explaining this, because my son, when he was at Maple participated in this program. So if you're not familiar, SABA stands for Spirited Athletes Bold at Heart. They are a mostly volunteer organization that services about 500 kids throughout Buffalo. They have a school age program where they actually partner with school districts like Sweet Home and give them skating lessons. So I want you not to imagine you're a teacher, because most of you are, you already know. So imagine in the middle of your workday, putting on ice skates, right? After you have gotten all of your special needs students onto a bus and taken into the rink in Riverside in Buffalo. And you get them in their skates and you got your skates on and you're all there trying to teach them a routine. Okay. So I want you to just envision for a second how difficult that is. And it's set to music. And it's beautifully choreographed and everybody's having a great time. So I did not get to go to see the show today because, once again, my day job prevents me from having fun. But I did get to see a little video clip. I'm hoping, Christine, you got more pictures and things like that, because I would just love to see the kids and how it all went down today. But just to give everybody who participated in this a special shout out, Glendale had 7 students and 3 staff. Willow Ridge had 11 students and 7 staff. Maplemere had 16 kids and 12 staff, and we had 2 Ready Academy kids that go and participate in this program, which just blows my mind how amazing that is. So to kind of piggyback on what Marianne says about our special education teachers, thank you so much. This is a wonderful opportunity that our kids have here at Sweet Home. I couldn't have been happier with when my son was in the program, and I'm just so grateful that so many other families get to participate in something like this as well. So thank you.
Yes,
That's it.
Mr. Belanti?
Okay, I did attend the play on Sunday, and, words cannot describe how wonderful it was. Especially watching kids that my son, who is a senior, grew up with, and now up there. It's phenomenal. I attended 2 PTA meetings over the last month, one at Willow Ridge and one at the high school. We talked about the multicultural night. They also have a science night coming up on April 4th at Willow Ridge. At the high school, they sponsor the basket raffle at the craft fair. And they are putting together a plan, Mr. Feldman, to read all the scholarship essays, I believe. So they're going to help out with that. We also had open dialogue on the concerns with the busing and time changes. The other things I did was I had some legislative meetings. I was in Albany on Tuesday, March 4th, with other teachers from around Western New York. We talked about foundation aid, the cell phone policy, CTE, aidable salary cap, teacher center funding, universal school meals. So we're all pushing for those. And then last Friday, I attended a legislative breakfast at the Kenton CTE Center with our area legislators and our Erie One BOCES leadership. We took a tour of the CTE Center and we also had some students speak to us. One of them is our senior Nick Schmidt, who is in the electrical program at Kenton CTE. He did a fantastic job, so I want to give kudos to him. He spoke to the legislators about his experience in the CTE program and how it's going to help guide his career plans. Upon graduation, he has two options. He can go work for NICEAG or he can become an apprentice at a local electrical company. So good luck to him. And that's it.
Okay, and I have nothing. That brings us to our second open session. Would anyone like to address the board? Going once, going twice. All right, moving on. May I have a motion and a second on personnel items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to the end of the meeting. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn to,
Nope, nothing.
to adjourn,
To adjourn.
period.
Adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.